Hi, I'm Walt Wager. Today I'm going to make a video on how to make a sushi dish. And it starts with a drawing. I made this drawing on PowerPoint, but I'll put a picture of this on my website, and you can download it if you wish. So it takes up about a full sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper. I'm going to start by cementing this onto a piece of cherry wood using some spray adhesive. Now I'm over at the bandsaw, and I'm going to cut the pattern out. There I have my blank that's going to become the sushi platter, or sushi dish. Now I'm going to go over to the drill press, drill a hole in the back of this with a Foster bit so that I can mount it on the scroll chuck. So I'm going to drill a 2 1/8 inch hole. Okay, I located a center spot on the back here using my compass and a ruler. That's where we're going to drill the hole. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure that the piece is clamped tightly to the drill press table. Alright, that looks pretty good. And I'm clearing the handles. So I'm going to drill now. So that the chuck draws can grab into that hole. So now use the scroll chuck and expand it into that cavity that I just created, like that. Tighten it down. Make sure it doesn't hit anything. And I'm ready to start turning. Now, one thing I want to make sure is that it's lined up nice and square, looks good. And as you can see, my circle in the front doesn't exactly match the center on the back, but that's not going to be a problem. I'm just going to take a Okay, we've pretty much determined that this is a okay location, and what we're going to do is taper from this circle part out to about halfway down the tail. And one thing to keep in mind is that when this is spinning, this area out here is blurred and it's hard to see, but you don't want to get your fingers anywhere near that part, because if it gets hit, of course it'll hurt. And we're going to spin it up quite fast so that we can get a good cut on it. Now, the way I drew it is pretty well balanced, but to be sure, or to give ourselves the most safety, we can do is put a live center on there and keep that on there until we're done with the tapering operation. I'm going to get my face shield, a 3/8 inch spindle gouge, and I'm going to hold the gouge like this at an angle about 45 degrees, and when it's turning I'm going to be pulling it out like this toward the outside edge. So I'm going to be pulling it out this way, but I really won't be able to see much, so I'm just going to come in here and come all the way out until I don't hear any more scraping. where I am. And I'm about out to my mark, about halfway up on the tab. I've tapered that down to there. Now, I'm going to create a bowl in the center, a shallow bowl in the center with the spindle gouge, and this time I'm going to be going this way. Out here, I had the flute facing me, the handle down, and at about 11 o'clock position, and pulling out this way. In here, I have the flute facing in at about a 1 or 2 o'clock position, and I'm going to be pushing toward the center. I'm going to get my tool rest set, make sure that nothing's hitting anything on the banjo or the tool rest. I'll start out here. Pushing toward the center. Get the paper out of the way. Okay, so there's the dish part of my sushi bowl, or sushi dish. I'm going to take the tailstock out of the way, the live center out of here. And take off this nub and smooth over the bottom of that bowl. I don't need it going quite so fast. Now one thing I can do is take a negative grade scraper, and if I have any tool marks in the bottom of the bowl here, and I do, I can set my tool rest a little higher, about in the middle, make sure everything is clearing the tool rest, and use a negative grade scraper to come across that bottom to clean it up. When I turn it off, I want to feel a nice continuous curve from here to the center. No dips, no hollow spots, no bumps. Just a nice curve. And that should do it. Now I leave a little rim on the bowl, so I'm going to take my spindle gouge again. And we're going to come down here off this spot right here, again pulling outward with the flute at about an 11 o'clock position. 11 o'clock. This would be 12. This is 11. And I'm going to pull it out like this, starting here and pulling out on the to make that rim and cut this down a little bit. One more. I can smooth that out also using the negative rake scraper. That's pretty smooth. Okay, so now I'm going to sand it a bit. But when something like this is spinning so fast and you want to sand it, you can't see where your pieces are here. Get your tool rest out of the way and use a sanding block, a little piece of foam here. Then I'm going to wrap the sandpaper around. I'm going to start with 180 grit. I'm going to keep the sandpaper low, and I'm going to cut the speed down to about 1,000. And just hold it up there so that as it flaps down on the sandpaper. I might clean up the rim of the bowl, the rim of the shallow bowl here. Make sure that nothing's hitting anything. I'm just going to use my square scraper, negative rake scraper, and come straight in on that edge. That's all nice and trued up. I want to put a little bit of more of a ridge down here. I can use my spindle gouge and come right down and make that a little more of a bead. A little more pronounced. All right, now that's the front edge, and I might have to do a little more sanding. I started with 180. I'll go to 220. And I'll finish up with 400. Now I may find I have to do a little hand sanding later, but right now it's looking pretty good. So there's a little tear out in the middle here. Let's hand sand it. And later on, if I need to, I'll put the electric sander on it. So now I need to turn around to do the bottom. And to do that, I'm going to have to hold it somehow. There's really no way to hold it in the chuck. So I'm using a plank of wood that I've turned before. I can put this in the chuck, and it has a piece of leather. It has a piece of leather glued onto the front edge to kind of cushion it against the wood. Also gives a little bit more. Just check that, make sure it's running true. Looks pretty good. So one of the problems with using a Forstner bit is you have a little hole in the middle here from the point on the Forstner bit. I could fill that in with glue later, but right now I want to use it to center this piece on here So I'm going to trap this against the block with the leather, and I'm going to use a steb live center so I'm not pushing in on that very center point with another point. I don't want to break through the bottom. I just want to snug it up so that it stays center. Check, make sure everything is clear, especially at the bottom of the banjo. I'm going to taper that. I'm going to put a foot on here for the platter to sit on. Looks like this when I'm done. That's the bottom. And I'll fill that hole with some sawdust. This is the top, this is the bottom, and we're doing the bottom. So I'm going to taper out from here and put the foot on and then take off the bottom. Again, this thing's moving very fast. You got to beware, keep your hands out of the way and keep on this side of the tool rest, and I'm coming with the flute pointed up at 11 o'clock, and I'm coming out this way to make that taper. Now on the inside of the foot, I'm going to go in the other direction. I'm going to face the flute at 2 o'clock and push in toward the center, just as I did on the front. Clean up the foot. Take a look and see how thick it is. There's quite a bit of thickness in here. I could taper this quite a bit more. I don't want to make the taper on the nose too much. And I notice I have a little chip out on the back edge of this tail fin. That'll sand out. That'll be fine. But I'll taper this. I'll pull this down some more and make it thinner out here on the side. So right here is where the side ends. So when I come out, I want to stay within that range right there. This is another good place to use the scraper. In this case, I'll use a square negative rake scraper coming out toward from the center out toward the end. I'm going to just make sure this is good and tight. So I'll now sand it the same way I did the front. Okay, that looks pretty good. There's a little ridge right here I don't like. I'm going to take that out with the rounded negative rake scraper right there. That's all there is to that. It's gone. So go back and sand starting with 180, 320. And I'll take that little spot out of the middle with a power sander drill and a mandrel. So there we've turned the basic blank for our sushi plate. I'm going to embellish it by using some biography. So let's go over to the biography. Alright, so with my wood burner I'm going to put some detail in the mouth to make a gill. Give a fish an eye. Some fins. And I usually put a little dot in the eye, a little different wood burning tool. And if you didn't have a wood burning set and you wish to do some coloring on it, these Castile fiber ink pens do a very nice job. You could even darken the. So there you have it, a sushi plate. I'll finish it with a food safe finish like walnut oil and buff it out to get my finished plate looking like this. At some point in the process, and I'm doing it now after I've done my topography and everything, I'm going to want to sand the edges. And what I've done is make a little sanding disc that's held by the chuck. I can use the tool rest as a table to just go and sand over the edges. And there you have it. So I hope you enjoyed this little project, and we'll subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.